What are Clean Mizuki's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Before I delve into things, I want to make something clear. This has to be one of the worst 5-star characters that Genshin Impact has produced in a long time. I always begin these videos by discussing the pros first and the cons later on, but this video is going to be a lot heavier on the cons because she is genuinely just that low in value, so bear that in mind as we go through her pros. The main pro that I can think of regarding this character is that she doesn't actually cost a single Primogem if you're willing to be patient. Every year, standard characters get slotted into a yearly selector for us to choose from during the anniversary. So if you aren't in any immediate rush to get Mizuki, then you can just wait until then in order to get her. With that being said, literally any of the other standards will be a more valuable pickup for your account. But if you end up losing to the other characters throughout the course of a year, and Mizuki ends up being the only one that you haven't lost to yet, then you're able to snipe her for free off of that selector. There's also the fact that you might lose your 50/50s to her as time goes on, which also reduces any pressure that you might feel. There is no immediate need to pull for her, because A, you'll lose to her eventually, or B, even if you don't but you still want the character, you can wait for the next anniversary to roll around, so she'll be free around the patch 6.0 to 6.1 mark. So with that being said, if you want to have her for whatever reason that may be, you can easily allow time to flow and then acquire her. Since you'll be passively getting copies of this character over time, her constellations are actually quite relevant. Especially when you consider that she's not really competitive with other options within her main niches if you don't have said copies. So, somewhat of a double-edged blade, since you can't really actively pull for these cons outside of her main banner period, but if you end up landing multiple copies of her, she'll finally be able to compete with Sucrose as a good Taser driver, and if you end up getting a ton of copies of her over time, she may actually end up being a good choice within her dedicated niche. She's able to heal your active character for HPs below 70%, kind of like what Bennett can do, which makes her decent in terms of generating fanfare. To be honest, we have much better healer options that are far more consistent that don't have a 70% heal handicap. It's fine with Bennett, because the overall value he provides is super worth your time, not to mention how quickly he heals. But hey, this still counts as a pro as it's an extra piece of utility that you gain access to when you play this character. She can provide consistent 4v shred for your entire team when she's played as an on-field driver, as she'll be constantly applying ammo on field, so you won't have to worry about the sets up time as much, since she'll be proccing that consistently for you. She's pretty easy to build in general, considering that you can dump her on a buttload of EM, shove her on sac frags or TDDS, and call it a day, so you'll be able to throw something together for her pretty quickly, seeing as she has a very standard build setup. I am truly the pinnacle of comedy. Alright, enough of that. We need to tear into this character now, because oh my goodness, I don't know what Hoyoverse was cooking here. I will at least say this much. You can certainly tell that she was designed for the standard banner. This unit is literally equal to SAYU. Yup, this 5-star character is essentially equal to SAYU in performance. They're both EM scaling healers. Their kit similarities are insane. It literally cannot get more cooked than this. You'd think that at the very least, she would at least be equal to Jean in terms of value, as the Favonius Knight is definitively better than SAYU, despite both characters sharing some similar kit qualities. But nope, Mizuki is her own breed of utterly terrible. She tries to fill a different role as opposed to Jean. Mizuki the Bath Lady attempts to be a competent animo driver, which makes sense when you consider the recent revival of Taser teams. We thank you for your assistance, kind edgelord Ororon. Jean is an off-field animo healer who's mostly good in teams that she can help out with fanfare generation, while also providing elemental shredding via 4v. But with that being said, I still feel like we should have gotten Jean's level of meta quality within Mizuki's kit, which is just not the case. She really feels like a 4-star character in her current state, and I'm not sure why Hoyoverse is doing this to the lass. I mean, hey, it allows Riesli to shine more after getting a horrible banner placement last time, not to mention that our beloved Lady Farina is joining him on the second half, but I still can't help but feel bad for the character. You can get all the EM scaling animo healing you need out of SAYU, no need to pick up Mizuki for that specific role, as there is very little separating their kits at the minute. I understand that a standard character has to be less desirable than the limited cast, but Diluc is really solid these days when paired with Xian Yun, Kaching's a competent Fischl driver, Jean is an excellent animo healer and 4v shredder, and Greg is a brilliant spread DPS. Dia's also seen her fair share of buffs in Notlon, so she's competent these days. The only real dud on the standard banner would be Chi-Chi, and perhaps Mona if you have no use cases for her. Okay, but let's say that you don't care, because you want to use her as an animo driver. The healing isn't the main selling point for you. You remember that 1.0 unit Sucrose? She beats out a C0 Mizuki in terms of overall utility. Yep, a unit that has existed for over 5 years is more competent than this brand new standard 5-star character. Using Mizuki over Sucrose would pretty much just be making your clears deliberately worse. You can't beat the great EM share that Sucrose provides. Mind you, I'm not even a big Sucrose shill. I actually have a lower opinion on the character compared to most people. Yet even I can acknowledge that she does a much better job of what Mizuki is trying to achieve. With that information in mind, I can't even recommend building her if you end up losing the 50-50 to her. I'm not sure why Hoyo felt the need to create another undesirable standard unit, because we already had one. And Mona is not garbage tier by any means, but I'd say she's still low value enough to fit the bill of a disappointing poll. In pretty much any driver-based team comp that you can think of for Mizuki, Sucrose will be a better on-fielder. There's one other major reason for this that we're going to touch on right now, and that would be the fact that she cannot proc Xingqiu or Yelan. Yes, two huge components of Taser literally cannot be triggered when you use Mizuki. Sure, our beloved Lady Farina is safe, but a lot of driver-based Taser teams enjoy using double Hydro. You can just use double Electro in fairness, so that sorts out that problem, but it's still pretty crazy that two really big key Taser characters are being left out of the picture here. The main team that I'm picturing for this character would be Mizuki, Lady Farina, Fischl, and 4-piece Intercity Autoron. Considering that these teams are famous for being very low investment friendly, I think it's a big miss to remove the ability to proc Xingqiu on her. Not having Yelan work makes no sense either. I'm not sure why Hoyo is trying to artificially force Farina into her teams, because you don't have to. She'd be the de facto best in slot option either way. If people have her available for the team, then they will 100% use her. There's no need to force a synergy that literally already exists. All this does is make the character more needlessly restrictive for no good reason, and even with our beloved Hydro Archon being taken into consideration, her performance still may end up being very underwhelming. There's another issue at hand here too. Being super lame performance-wise is one thing, but using up extremely high-value teammates only to lose out to a 4-star released in 1.0? Yeah, that's rough. Farina, Fischl, and Autoron are all really high-value characters that could be much better utilized elsewhere. Yikes, man. This character has next to nothing going for her. She does very little in comparison to other teams that we already have in the game at the moment, and I have no idea as to why anybody would choose her in specific unless they just really like Mizuki as a character. Hoyo has successfully created another disaster unit, and we're not even in X.5. Considering that she's being released alongside Siege Queen's rerun, my assumption is that Hoyo is trying to give players a break banner, or a break period, to allow everyone to save Primogems again. 5.3 was a bombshell patch in terms of banners, seeing as we got some insane meta behemoths such as Moika and Sitlolly, while also getting reruns of some much beloved characters like Arlecchino and Clorox Bleach. So they're throwing us 3 weeks to take a break, if you will. I can't think of any other logical reason as to why they're doing this. This unit is as much of a disaster as Dia was on release. The good news is that they've at least held off on showing this character until way later on, so nobody had too much time to build up any major hype, expecting her to pop out with a limited 5-star kit. Nobody knew that Dia was going to be a standard character until right before her release. Yeah, those times were rough, man. Terrible character. Unless she's your favorite waifu of all time, I deeply implore that you don't waste a ton of funds on her. There's no value here. She's an awful pull for new and old players alike, offering nothing that current 4-stars we already have in the game could not. Sure, we could all be prematurely doom-posting here, and Hoyo might have plans to upgrade her teams in the future, but I honestly doubt that she's going to be at the forefront of Hoyo's mind for a long time, seeing as she's being relegated to the standard banner. Yumemizuki Mizuki is certainly a John Johnson of all time. I will be skipping this unit. I tried to pull for every unit, but this? No, I'm not doing it. I'm already averse to the idea of pulling for characters that will eventually be put on the standard banner, but I'd make an exception if the character was decent enough. But no, there is only so far that I can go before I decide that a unit is unworthy of being pulled for. If you like the character, that's great, and I'm happy that she appeals to you, but I, in good faith, cannot recommend this unit or say that she's worth anything when she's just not. I get that standards are supposed to be worse off than limiteds, but the fact that this 5.x era character is worse than characters that are over 5 years old is unacceptable. She's not worth the res in her primos, especially considering how much effort it takes to save up for banner characters. Really hope that the character releases that come after her are less underwhelming, because this is just a whole other level of ridiculously bad. 5.4's first half is shaping up to be one of the worst double banners in all of Genshin's history. Save your Primogems for the almighty Rio Beastly on the second half. Welcome his return with open arms, so that he may not be sentenced to another 500 years of solitude. But what do you think about Mizuki? Do you intend to pull for her out of love anyways? Or do you agree that our primos should all stay far, far away from her? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Mizuki's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and Recently Rerun! At last! Yeah!